record, but don't worry. I mean, what we're saying now will be edited out. So,
Okay.
All right, ladies, let's get started. Hold on, let me, la, 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 la. No, just teasing. All right. Hola, my fellow physical therapy and physical therapy assistant students. My name is Gustavo Martinez, and I am the nominating committee chair of APTA Student Assembly Board of Directors. It is my pleasure to introduce to you and interview the candidates for the SPT Delegate for the 2021-2022 Student Assembly Board of Directors. Candidates, please start by introducing yourselves.
I'll go first. My name's Kaylee Bates, and I'm a second year DPT student at APTA Still University.
And hey, I'm Bridget Nolan. I am a third year DPT student at Sacred Heart University.
Fantastic. So let's get started with the interview, and we'll start first with Kaylee. First question, why should students be interested and invested in the House of Delegates?
Yeah, so I would like to start with really what the House of Delegates is. So the House of Delegates is a lot like Congress, but instead of being split into the House of Representatives and the Senate, it's all together. So there are voting, and it's a little bit different in the sense of there are voting members and non-voting members a part of the House of Delegates. So the delegates who do vote either represent the state, which is the 50 states plus the District of Columbia, so there's 51 chapters, or they're a part of the section and academics. So those are the people who vote, and then there are non-voting members such as students, the APTA Board of Directors, and people part of special committees. So the House of Delegates all comes together to vote on items that really range from policies and bylaws within the organization of the APTA, as well as policies and legislation that affects PTs and PTAs. So the reality is that there's going to be a range of how interested people are in regards to the House of Delegates. So I think that it's really important. And one of the things that I'm most excited about in this position is because I'll be able to break down policy into digestible information. So with the range of people, with how interested or invested they want to be, they'll be able to get that information. Because regardless of how interested a person is, it still affects us within the profession as students, as well as future clinicians, and as well as recent grads and current clinicians. So I know that I'll be able to do this because I did have a professional job in between the time I was in undergrad and grad school, where I worked with organizational policy to break down changes such as like federal state changes to a board that was made up of a majority of undergraduate students.
Thank you for your response, Kaylee. Now, my question to you, Bridget, how do you plan to effectively collect and represent opinions of the Student Assembly when speaking on behalf of 30,000 plus students at House of Delegates?
So this is something I've been thinking a lot about as I've been on my state student SIG board. And I think one of the best ways to do that is through reaching out to the core ambassadors and the student SIG leaders and trying to get their opinions, because they have more contact with the students in each chapter throughout the day. And then also trying to find the different events that chapters do that relate to students and the House of Delegates. So I know there's the House of Delegates, and Connecticut now has a mock House of Delegates that students participate in. So I'm sure other states do things like that. So if I'm able to find all of those little events and even just talk to the chapters and get all the students' opinions through things like that on a more personal, small scale level, then I can try and condense them all and find out what motions students actually have a strong opinion on, and then use that to help figure out what motions I would want to speak on at the House of Delegates and help try to push the Student Assembly's voice for.
Thank you for your response, Bridget. Kaylee, my next question to you is, how important is it to synthesize feedback from the Student Assembly pertaining to new policy And what's your best idea to obtain those thoughts?
Yeah, so I do think that it's actually very important for this position, particularly to be able to synthesize feedback. And because I believe that it's the role to be a voice of the collective and not my own personal agenda being brought forward. So if I were to be elected to gather feedback from students to be able to find themes, so whether that be big picture themes or small short-term things, to then be able to make an actionable plan from those things in order to actually continue to move the profession forward. And so I believe the best way to synthesize feedback is first to make sure that it's being presented in a way that's accurate as well as digestible, so that people don't get lost in the weeds, but also people understand what we're being talked about. And how I like to describe that to people is sometimes when we talk to people about anatomical terms, they might not understand that. So us being able to, with policy, it has that similar thing. Sometimes people just don't know the language. So being able to do that for them. And then I have had the perfect, I've had experience in undergrad with being on the board of directors. In my student leadership, I was a chair of a board of directors, and in my regular duties, I spoke for 40,000 students to our VP of Student Affairs, as well as university president, to be able to bring students' needs forward, to be able to break down where those themes are and how to make actionable plans for us to be able to move forward. So I know that I'll be able to do this in this position. And then once all of the information is properly presented to all of the students, being able to use that to be able to either have like short answer forms like yes, no, multiple choice options, or as well as like feedback for open response for them to be able to not only answer why, but if they want to answer why. So this will be able to get a pulse point of where a majority of students are, and to be able to condense information as well as expand on it where other people are interested in it, and for us to be able to move forward. And so like, I want to try to make this as engaging as possible. Even though I know policy may not be as exciting for other people, it is very exciting for me.
Thank you for that response, Kaylee. Bridget, my next question for you is, the Student Assembly can bring forth motions to be voted upon in the House of Delegates. What student issue would you like to be proposed at the 2022 House of Delegates?
So for this one, I was trying to think of a new motion, but I feel like what we need to propose is again going to be pushing for the students to have voting rights. They've been making a lot of headway with last year, the components getting the right to vote, and then this year, the PTAs. So getting the students that right is the biggest thing on the agenda in my mind. But obviously I'd be willing to take any ideas that other students might have. I just think we'd get a lot more students involved and interested in the policies if they knew they had more of that active role where their voice not only influenced other people's votes, but was able to have a vote itself. Especially because we do bring a different perspective to the table, since we are younger and more fresh eyes, kind of to say. A lot of the House of Delegates, many of them have been practicing for a long time. So getting our perspective in earlier is going to be a big thing, so that then there's no policies that are being created that we might have to change later on down the line. We can just have a say in making sure they're done so that everyone likes them to begin with.
Thank you for your response, Bridget. And thank you both, ladies, for your excellent responses. However, before we wrap up, and so the student members can get to know you a little bit more, I want to ask you a fun question, okay? So we're going to go back around again, and we'll go with Kaylee and then Bridget. And I'm going to ask you both the same question. The question is, what's something weird that you recommend everyone tries at least once?
I had a hard time thinking of an answer to this because weird is where I'm getting stuck. But in general, that I can say to every person, I would say meditation, because I know that that is something's important. But as something weird goes, I would definitely say try what being vegan is like for a week to see what the differences are and see if you enjoy your food and being able to, I don't know, just try something that may be outside of someone your comfort zone.
Thank you for that, Kaylee. And Bridget?
So initially I wanted to say something like skydiving, but I know a lot of people are afraid of heights, so I'm not going to try and convince everyone they got to go jump out of a plane. But I think everyone should try cup stacking. It's completely random. It's weird. Most people probably have never had the desire to even think about it. But my campground had it one year, competition, and I can be a slightly competitive person, so I went all in. And it was actually a lot more fun than I thought it would be. So I think everyone should just give it a shot. Just, it doesn't take too much athletic ability. Just see what you got.
Thank you, ladies, for your responses, and I'll definitely have to try both of those. I don't think I've had, so thank you for that. And fellow students, for those of you watching, thank you for joining us in this interview. These are the candidates for the SPT Delegate for the 2021-2022 Student Assembly Board of Directors. All student members are able to cast their votes between October 7th to November 6th on the candidate webpage found on apta.org. Thank you again for joining us, and until we meet again.